Thank you, Mr. Tedder. Question number 2 goes to you, Mr. Tedder. What measures would you support in enhancing racial relations in our district and state?
So as we already know, race relations is a big issue today, nationally and on the state level, locally. What I think we need to do is, one, we need to address and acknowledge that there is a race issue, here in Charleston County and in our district. And what we need to do is have those conversations. Those conversations are uncomfortable, but that's how we move forward. We need to put in policies. We don't have a hate crime bill. That's something that I'll push for when I'm in the legislature. We need to fully fund officer body cams so that everybody's accountable, so that it also protects the officers and it protects the people who are in the streets, who are out on the community. So we need to put forth policies like that, get rid of qualified immunity that protects officers when they're bad actors. We need to be able to hold people accountable. And again, the main issue is that we need to acknowledge that there is a race issue in our state. We see it time and time again, but we just throw it under the rug, and we need someone who's going to actually go up and be a voice for everybody, not just one particular individual or one group of people, but for everybody, so that it's true that we have equality and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tedder. Mr. Travis, the same question.
Yes, I believe that as far as race relations, I think they're pretty good here in the district. When I go to stores and I go to Sam's Club and the Walmart, all the different races are very courteous. I'm courteous to the African Americans are there, and they're very nice to me. I don't know where all of this built up race problem stuff comes from. I think it's from the political parties that want to profit from stirring up a pot that isn't there. It's not on the stove. I never have any trouble with any other races when I'm out and about in North Charleston. I go to stores and people open the door for me, and I do the same for them. We nod our heads. Hello, how are you? How are you today, sir? Nice to see you. And this is between all the races that I run into. And so I don't know where all of this racial problem is festered at. I think it's in the press and by the parties, because I don't see it. I think we are a lot friendlier than we're perceived to be.
Mr. Tedder, you have 60 seconds.
Yes, I'd just like to chime in on that. While I will agree that in some part that, there are times when people are nice to each other, but it's larger than that. And as Mr. Travis stated, he doesn't have an issue with other races, and that's great. But the problem is there are people, particularly in the African American and minority community, that have those issues. And we've seen it with the Emmanuel 9, the massacre, and we saw it with Walter Scott, the policing. I mean, we see it all the time, these police shootings. And so it is an issue. And again, this is why we need to have the conversation, because we can't fix a system that's broken until we acknowledge that it is broken and that there are race relation issues. And I believe there are issues, and I'm going to fight to reform those, again, by doing such things as an unqualified immunity, fully funding body cams so that we can have the full story for everybody when things happen. But we have to acknowledge that this is real. And it's not just about going to the grocery store and saying hello.
All right. All right, question number 3. We'll start with you, Mr. Travis. If elected, what will you do to engage and communicate with your constituents on a regular basis? And will you pledge to do so?
Oh, certainly, I would pledge to do so. I would like to be transparent and open to everybody's suggestions. How would they communicate with me? Simply by email and telephone and correspondence. And hopefully, if I'm elected to the State House, I'll have a secretary or two that can help me with all the paperwork and make sure mail that comes to me goes right back to the concerns of the public. Well, I'll be on Facebook, Rodney Travis, House of Representative 109, and people can message me there. I promise to be fully accessible to all of the constituents here in the District of 109.
Thank you. Mr. Tedder, the same question.
Yeah, so my thing is about being accessible, being available. And I've been telling people this since the primary election when I was out in the community. You know, that's one thing that we miss with our state legislators, with government in general. People get in these offices and they forget that home is here in Charleston County and Dorchester County. So I want to be accessible. I will be in the community. I will be, you know, going to the neighborhood association meetings and talking to my constituents, because the real job for us is to go to Columbia and fight for people, but it's also to keep our constituents informed. And oftentimes the information that gets back to the district, it happens too late before there are opportunities that we miss out on because the information is just not brought back. So I want to do that, to be able to go find out what's going on, gather resources and bring it back to our community, be in the district. Like I said, attending meetings, neighborhood association meetings, but you have to meet the people where they are, being accessible, taking phone calls. I've already been doing that. As I meet people, I give them my cell phone number. Give me a call, because I don't pretend to know it all, but my job is to listen to you so that I can discern what the issues are, and then that will help me best go and fight for you and bring back the change that we need and the resources that we deserve.
All right, thank you. We will now go to question number 4. Mr. Tedder, we will start with you. There are calls for changing how public education is funded in our state. Do you support education funding reform? And if so, what will you do to reform the funding mechanism?
So public education, again, is one of my top priorities, investing more in that. And we have to acknowledge that the public system, public schools work. I went to public schools all my life, and here I am, a local attorney and running for state office. So, you know, it's an example to show that you can go to public school and still be successful. A lot of it is that we need to just invest more and not do things that our governor was trying to do, such as take away money from the CARES Act, to take public funds and funnel those to private institutions. We don't need that. Our public schools are already underfunded. We need to pay teachers more, raise teacher pay. We need to minimize our class sizes so that the instruction is legit and people can understand and have that one-on-one interaction with their teachers. And so we need to do things such as that. And we can't keep trying to take money to give private vouchers to private school, because our public schools work. We need to listen to our teachers. They go time and time again to the State House and they rally and they are speaking, again, a voice for the voiceless. They're not voiceless, but they're being silenced by the powers that be. And they need someone that's going to represent them and fight for them in Columbia. And I'll do just that.
Thank you. Mr. Travis, the same question to you.
Yes, I believe that the public education system needs to be revamped. I think there's plenty of money that's going into the system. It's just not doing any good. I think we need to have vouchers, and we need to end all the mandates from Washington to allow our teachers to teach and make our schools better. But pumping money into a failed system isn't going to do us a whole lot of good. I would like to see maybe some smaller schools. We have these great big mega schools that people plan for and want to build everywhere. But I think we need to have some smaller schools, maybe rent out existing buildings that are vacant, like maybe over there at Citadel Mall or something. We need some new styles of education, and we're learning about those new styles of education with the COVID virus, where some of the students are learning at home. This might be a good thing. Or having community schools instead of these mega schools. That way our money will be used better. We won't have to spend so much and raise taxes and construction of new schools. We have the buildings, I think, accessible now that we can use. We can put the students in them now. As far as teacher pay, I'd like to see teachers make more pay. I know they have a good job. I mean, a hard job, and but our system is bad. Pumping more money into it is not going to do us much good. We have to do some significant changes to the public education system in America and here in South Carolina.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Travis. Question number 5, we'll begin with you, Mr. Travis, and it is as following. Do you support or oppose resolutions that would require calling a constitutional convention to amend the U.S. Constitution? What benefits would you expect and what concerns do you have?
I think that that might be a good idea. There's some surveys that have been sent to me as a candidate asking if I would support some of these conventions and stuff to maybe change the Constitution. I hope it wouldn't be to make us into a communist country. Those kind of conventions might be kind of dangerous. If it's something to do with our rights and freedom and liberties here in America, I would be open to some constitutional convention activity. And so that's about all I have to say about that.
All right. Mr. Tedder, the same question. Do you support or oppose resolutions that would require calling a constitutional convention to amend the U.S. Constitution? What benefits would you expect and what concerns would you have?
So, well, first, I'm opposed to any constitutional convention, and the reason is because it's in the climate that we have today in our environment. It's unrealistic and it could be detrimental. Our founding fathers, the Constitution was created for a reason, and if it had not been, we wouldn't be where we are today. However, we do have to acknowledge and realize there are a lot of issues there, but there's a proper way to do that, and so to do so without a majority, I think that would be detrimental to call a constitutional convention. There's just a lot of rights that are at stake, within the Constitution that protect certain people and certain classes, and we don't want to open those things up to where we're going backwards in time. But again, I do believe there are issues that need to be addressed. However, I don't think a constitutional convention would be the proper way to do that.
All right. Thank you, sir. Let's move on. Mr. Tedder, this question will be for you. Do you support or oppose Medicaid expansion in South Carolina? And please explain why or why not.
Yes, so I fully support Medicaid expansion in South Carolina. I think we missed the ball. We missed out on the opportunity when we didn't do it several years ago. And one of the issues and the reasons is that because we have so many people in South Carolina that are uninsured. As an attorney, I represent people all the time who don't have health insurance, and it's sad to see bills pile up and pile up. And one thing we have to get away of is equating Medicaid with being poor. That's not necessarily the case. There are people on Medicaid who have disabilities, people whose parents are disabled, their children should be afforded Medicaid, so it's not just about being from a low income society or environment. It's also about those who actually just can't afford this private health insurance that need help, and that they should be entitled to health care as well. In light of the COVID, the pandemic that's going on now, we've been exposed on how people can't get quality service because they don't have health insurance. Take, for example, our president, he was immediately rushed to a fancy hospital and had doctors at his side. And we have people in our state who have great health insurance, and that's awesome. But we need to make sure that we protect every citizen. And that's my job as an elected official, to make sure not only the wealthy are protected, but make sure that the people who are unheard and often left out have a seat at the table and have the opportunity to have access to the same quality of health care as everyone else. So I do support Medicaid expansion.
All right. Mr. Travis, the same question. Do you support or oppose Medicare expansion? And please explain your answer.
I oppose Medicaid expansion as part of the Libertarian Party platform. That Medicaid and Medicare are redistribution of wealth programs where you pay taxes to pay other people's bills. Libertarians do not support that, and I believe that the Medicaid should not be expanded here in South Carolina, and this is going to, on down the road, if we do have Medicaid expansion, it'll just make more dependency on government. We need less dependency on government. We need people to pay their own bills instead of being tapped on the shoulder by government like a waiter at a restaurant. Sir, I need some more money out of you to pay this other guy's bill. I need more money from you to pay this lady's bill over here. Libertarians oppose that kind of government action, and we oppose Medicaid expansion, and I will oppose Medicaid expansion.
All right. Mr. Tedder, did you want 60 seconds?
Yes, I just wanted to add one thing. And so for our district here, and District 109 particularly, this is an important issue because we have a lot of people who are on Medicaid and Medicare, and we have people who don't have access to quality health care. So by doing away with Medicaid or opposing it, it would be, disenfranchising people in our district. And so we need to be able to understand it's not about asking the government for money. It's about doing what's right. I believe that healthcare should be a right. Everybody should be afforded the same quality of healthcare because it's not fair that just because you were born in a certain zip code, you can't have access to the same doctors and the same medications for the same prices that other people do.
All right. Thank you, sir. We will move on to the next question. Mr. Travis, I'll start with you for this one. What policies do you support to affect change in the criminal justice system?
What policies? Well, I think that we need to stop the revolving door policies that we seem to have in our jail system. We read about criminals all the time that are rearrested, and they have a rap sheet that's 5 pages long, and we wondered how are these people able to walk on the streets and commit even more crimes. So that's the main thing that I'm concerned about, keeping violent criminals in jail. As far as people that smoke marijuana on the side or something, I don't want to see those people in jail, but I do want to see the violent criminals, the rapists, the people using guns, carrying stolen handguns that are causing all kind of mayhem. They shouldn't be in jail for a month or two and then back out on the streets. So that's what I'd like to see with the criminal justice system. I can't understand why all these people with these rap sheets are just rearrested and don't spend serious time in jail. If they deserve to be there, they need to stay in there for a while.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tedder, the same question to you. What policies would you support to affect change for the criminal justice system?
So I deal with the criminal justice system almost every day. Again, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I do personal injury law. And I see issues that our justice system is just not fair. I can commit the same crime as Mr. Travis, and I can guarantee you almost that our sentences would be different just because of our skin color. And it's a reality that we have to acknowledge and address here in South Carolina and nationally. So what I would do is, one, we need to decriminalize marijuana. We need to stop putting people in jail for these nonviolent offenses. What happens is jail is not a rehabilitation center. People go in jail, and the reason that Mr. Travis is concerned that people get out and they reoffend is because a lot of these people just need help. There are people I see time and time again. They're constantly using drugs and they get out and they fall back. It's because they have a drug addiction, and so we need to implement more programs, more rehabilitation programs that will help people, and not just throw them and lock the key away and think that will fix anything, because it won't address the issues. But we need to get rid of qualified immunity again, fully fund officer body cams. We need to get rid of the mandatory minimums. Also, cash bond. It makes no sense that a person who is deemed not a flight risk or a danger to the community has to still sit in jail because they don't have the money to get out.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tedder. We'll begin the next question with you, Mr. Tedder. What suggestions do you have for managing the pandemic in our state, as well as preparing for pandemics in the future?
Let's see. Well, we've been exposed once again due to COVID. So we've seen what works and what doesn't work. What I would do is we have to realize and listen to our science, our scientists, our experts. You know, I believe that we opened up way too soon in South Carolina, and we're seeing that the result of that now, as our numbers are still going up, but we seem to think that COVID is dying down, but in fact it's not. We have to listen to the scientists, make masks mandatory. You know, and a lot of people don't like to wear masks, but we have to understand it's not about what we want; it's about protecting others as well. We don't want to go around having large events and spreading this virus. So I believe that we just need to listen to science, that this is real. Um, it's a real situation. I know people that have passed away from COVID. I know people that have made it through. I myself contracted COVID back in June. And so I know that it's serious, and I'm grateful and blessed to have had health insurance to go to the doctor and bounce back from that. But a lot of people don't have that. And we just need to, again, make sure we're keeping people safe. So the mask mandates, the small congregations, limiting crowd sizes, and not just opening back up just because we want to see money flow. But we have to make sure we're taking care of the people that we represent. And that's you and I.
All right. Travis, the same question. What suggestion would you have for managing the current pandemic in our state and preparing for any future pandemics?
Well, my opinion on that is I think the state has done a pretty good job of keeping us informed of the numbers and the cautionary procedures we should be using. I would like to see more hospitals and more healthcare facilities around. And for that, I think we need to abolish the certificate of needs laws, which we have in our state, that where a big hospital says, well, we're going to build our great big multi-million-dollar hospital, and we need a guarantee to keep other competing hospitals out of our vicinity. And these certificate of needs laws just, stop the competition that maybe we need in the healthcare field. And also it lowers the amount of hospital beds and hospital rooms that could be available for future pandemics. And I think the legislature needs to act on repealing the certificate of needs laws that are causing a shortage of the hospital rooms even now. And we can have plenty of beds, we can have plenty of hospitals, plenty of health care, if only we could get rid of the certificate of needs laws.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Travis. We'll begin this next question with you as well, sir. Please comment on the current gun laws in South Carolina.
The current gun laws, I think the gun laws are pretty good right now. I think we have the concealed carry permits that people where people have to go to classes and learn how to use their guns safely. I don't know if people should be walking into Northwoods Mall with a gun on their holster or not, on their hip. Maybe so. I don't know, but I wouldn't like it myself. But I think out in my yard walking around, I think if I want to have my shotgun strapped to my shoulder, I think that's fine with me. We need to protect our Second Amendment rights. We don't want violence on our streets, but we do need to be able to protect ourselves when the violent people come after us. So I think the gun laws are probably pretty appropriate from what I know.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Travis. Mr. Tedder, the same question for you. Please comment on our current South Carolina gun laws.
Yes, so I support the Second Amendment right. However, I do believe that we need to monitor who we allow to get a weapon in South Carolina. We need to keep track of the system of people who have mental health issues, people who have, violent offenders, so that we keep a track of this, so that we're not allowing people who should not have a weapon, that is not safe, that who don't know how to, manage a weapon responsibly to be out on the streets with a gun. And so we see things like the Emmanuel massacre, where Dylan Roof should not have had a gun. So we need to make sure that we have this registry, and we're making sure that we have people apply for these things and they get checked out before they're approved for weapons. But I do believe that, we should be able to have weapons. We just need to make sure it's safe for all people. And that's my position on our gun laws here.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tedder. We'll begin with you, Mr. Tedder, for this next question. For what reasons would you support or oppose the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment in South Carolina?
So in our state, we've made great strides over the past 60 years. And I think that we need to join the other 48 states to send a message, basically, that South Carolina is setting a zero tolerance for a policy because we're all equal. We need to ban sex discrimination. Again, it's ridiculous that it's now 2020 and we still have conversations about whether or not a man and a woman is equal, equal pay, things like that. We still have issues with that in our state. So I do believe that we need to address the equal rights issue and join the other 48 states in this.
All right, Mr. Travis, did you hear the question? Where do you stand on your opposition or support for ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment?
I will support the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. And I believe that everybody needs equal rights, women, straight people, gay people, whatever. And so I will support the Equal Rights Amendment and make sure that women are treated just as fairly as men and men as fairly as women. Let's get rid of these situations where the women are paid less than the men. Let's make sure that women are treated fairly here in South Carolina and across our great country.
Thank you, sir. We're going to have one more question and then we'll go to closing arguments. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Travis. Do you support comprehensive sexual health education that is medically accurate and supports all identities in the South Carolina public school system?
Please repeat that one more time.
I will. Do you support comprehensive sexual health education that is medically accurate and supports all identities in the South Carolina public schools?
Oh my goodness, that's a pretty heavy question. I don't know about should sex education be taught in our lower grades. I might be opposed to that. I think we are a little bit lax with the sexuality, and people need to grow up before they learn a lot about the birds and the bees. So I'm gonna just take put my thoughts on that on the side for this interview right now.
All right, Mr. Tedder, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I've got it. So I do support comprehensive sex ed in our schools. And the key word that you said is being medically accurate. And so for me, information is key. We have to acknowledge that now children are learning more about sexual engagement so fast through social media, television. It's just out there. The information is out there. So what we need to do is make sure we equip them with the necessary tools that they need. And that's understanding the risks of engaging in sexual conduct. And if we don't educate them early, we look at issues where, they engage in activity that may cause a youth pregnancy and then to drop out of school and things like that, or transmittal of certain diseases, sexually transmitted diseases. So I think it's important that we educate them because, again, information is key. And while we always err on the side of caution when talking to children about these issues, we still have to realize that in this day and age in 2020, the information is out there. It's on the these apps that the kids have now. It's just so much information that they're taking in from strangers and other people, and it's not medically accurate. So that's why we must ensure that they're educated on that level. And I believe that if certain parents don't want their children to engage in that type of education, then they certainly have the right to remove their children from that particular session.
All right, Mr. Tedder and Mr. Travis, thank you so much. That concludes our question portion. Before we go to the closing statements, we're going to let the two of y'all take a breath for just a minute. And I want to share with you some important, and those who are watching, important voting information for the November 3rd election. We also have a couple of slides that will accompany this. So whether you are voting early in person, absentee by mail, or on election day, make your voting plan. A lot of voting rules have changed in 2020, including options on how, when, and where you can vote. Now is a great time to check your voter registration, and you may do so at vote411.org. That is the League's nonpartisan voter information website. And you can make sure if you check your voter registration that you are ready to participate in this upcoming election. Also, if you go to vote411.org, you can learn more about the candidates you will be voting on, compare their responses to the League's questions. You may find your polling place and learn about COVID-related voting changes. Early voting by mail and in person is underway now. For early voting times and locations, visit your county election office website or the voting page on the League's website, which is lwvcharleston.org. To request an absentee ballot, contact your Charleston County Election Office. The number is 843-744-VOTE. And now it's time for our 60-second closing statements. We'll go in reverse order from the opening statements. We will begin with you, Mr. Travis.
Thank you very much. I hope that everybody had a great time with this forum today. I know that I did, and I'd like to thank my opponent, Dion, for being here too. I hope that everybody out there who wants change, sincerely wants change, as they say, oh, we need to have some change. We need things to be different. You can have something different. Vote Libertarian this year. We are the ones that can provide the answers that the Democrats and the Republicans can't. They want to fight all the time. They want to argue all the time, and nobody can get along. I hear it all the time on the radio. The Democrats have to have one thing one way, the Republicans the other way. The Libertarians can answer the questions and solve problems if you'll only give us a chance. So please vote for me this year, election 2020, November 3rd. Vote for Rodney Travis, House 109. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Travis. Mr. Tedder, your 60-second closing remarks, please.
Yes, I want to thank you all for having this forum. I believe that this is key. Information is key again, and a part of our job, as going up to the State House is to spread the information. And the only way people will know who has their best interests at heart is because of having forums like this. So I appreciate you all. Thank you, Mr. Travis, for coming. But I just want to reiterate, we need somebody that's going to fight for our district. Invest more in our public education. I'm willing to do that. I went to public schools, it works. Pay teachers more, decrease class sizes, race relations, acknowledge that there's an issue, put forth policies to help that. Criminal justice reform, Medicaid expansion. We have to make sure everybody has access to the same health care. We need to do rapid testing, make sure we have more testing sites in our district so that people don't have to drive far. Especially those in the rural areas, So not only will we be representing this district, but we'll be representing South Carolina as a whole. And we need to make sure that we're moving forward and making sure everybody has access to the same quality of healthcare and the same things. Thank you, Dion Tedder, House 109.
Thank you, Mr. Tedder. And again, thank you to Mr. Travis and Mr. Tedder. We appreciate to all of those who will take the time to hear our candidates in this forum. We encourage everyone to study the issues carefully, learn about the positions of each candidate, and vote for the candidate of your choice. Many thanks to both you, Mr. Tedder, and you, Mr. Travis, for running for House District 109. If those of you who will now turn on your audio and video, we will give you a warm round of applause. And we thank you again for being here and hope you have a very restful afternoon.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Dion.
again.
Thanks. Yeah. We appreciate you all.